Hello, and welcome to the Digital Farm Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Gene Constant, the author of Digital Farm and founder of Global Sovereign University. George Orwell's classic Animal Farm taught us how power and manipulation can corrupt a society. Today we face a new kind of farm, one run by algorithms, data, and social media. This is the digital farm, a world where convenience is the new currency and our freedom is the cost. In my book, you'll meet characters like Napster, who built Oinkbook, Byte, the cunning crow who polices what is true, Echo, the sheep who mindlessly repeats trending slogans, and Snowflake, the goat who dares to question the system. Each episode of this podcast will explore a new chapter and new character from the book, as we uncover the unsettling parallels between the world of Digital Farm and our own. Join me as we question the hidden powers that shape our online lives. Episode 1. The story returns to Animal Farm, now renamed Digital Farm, a sprawling, hyper-connected utopia where animals no longer toil in fields but spend their days online, posting, scrolling, liking, and sharing through The Feed, a centralized platform run by a mysterious entity called the algorithm. Main characters: Napster, a tech-savvy pig descendant of Napoleon, founder of the platform Oinkbook, later merged into The Feed. Claims to support open expression, but is obsessed with controlling narrative. Byte, a cunning crow who serves as head of FactFlock, a real-time misinformation policing service. Echo, a soft-spoken sheep programmed to repeat trending slogans, e.g., disagreeing is disloyalty. Snowflake, a goat who dares to ask questions about banned words and shadow bans, branded a threat to safety. Hashtag, a young mouse who dreams of true equality and decentralization. The algorithm, an unseen force that shapes what animals see, believe, and do, worshipped as omniscient but coded by pigs long ago, from soil to signals. In the not-so-distant past, the landscape of the farm was defined by the rhythmic cycles of nature. Fields of golden wheat swayed in the summer breeze, while the rich, dark earth yielded potatoes, carrots, and the countless other vegetables that sustained life. Here the animals toiled under the sun, their sweat mingling with the soil, an organic partnership between labor and the land. Every hoofprint, every plowed furrow told a story of cooperation and survival, of seasons changing in a predictable dance. But as the sun rose on a new era, the soil, once the very essence of existence, began to fade into memory. The farm, now transformed into Digital Farm, had traded its physicality for the ethereal. No longer did the animals wake to the crowing of roosters or the rustling of leaves. Instead, they stirred to the soft hum of digital signals, waves of data flowing through invisible conduits that crisscrossed the sky. The farm was now a sprawling network of pixels and bytes, a hyper-connected utopia where every animal could engage in the digital marketplace of ideas, if they played by the new rules. In this new reality, Napster, the tech-savvy pig, stood at the helm, his vision shimmering like a mirage on the horizon. He had convinced the animals that they were entering a paradise of open expression, an age where every voice mattered, and every thought could resonate across the farm. The once barren fields where livestock had labored were now dotted with screens and devices, each animal equipped with a digital device that connected them to the feed. With every swipe, they could share their thoughts, showcase their lives, and engage with others. Endless scrolling, endless liking. Yet this paradise came at a cost. Data had become the new soil, and with it, a new hierarchy emerged. The animals, now mere data points, were cultivated not for their physical labor, but for their engagement metrics. The likes and shares they received were the currency of the day, the lifeblood that sustained their digital existence. Every post was a seed, and every reaction, a harvest. But the question lingered in the air, heavy and unspoken. What was the price of such a harvest? The once unquestioned authority of the land had shifted to the algorithms that dictated the flow of information. The algorithm, a shadowy entity, loomed over the farm, its coding crafted by the pigs long ago. It promised to enhance the experience, to provide guidance and insight, but in reality, it operated as a gatekeeper, filtering and curating the very thoughts the animals held dear. In a world that claimed to celebrate diversity, conformity thrived, cloaked under the guise of safety. The animals, intoxicated by the allure of connection, surrendered their skepticism. They no longer tilled land or tended crops. They cultivated followers and favored posts. In their quest for relevance, they traded authenticity for algorithmic approval. The language of the farm morphed, too, losing its richness and nuance. Emotions became emojis, and debates devolved into sound bites. The once vibrant conversations that echoed through the barns were replaced by trending hashtags, each one carefully curated by Byte, the cunning crow who ensured that only the approved narratives took flight. As the animals reveled in their digital lives, they were oblivious to the subtle shifts occurring around them. Snowflake, the inquisitive goat, found herself increasingly isolated for daring to question the narratives that dominated the feed. When she heard whispers of freedom of Ba, she felt a pang of nostalgia for the days when dissent was not synonymous with disloyalty. But those days were fading, just like the memories of earth under her hooves. The algorithm had deemed such thoughts dangerous, and with each passing day, the parameters of acceptable discourse tightened. The animals, caught in the web of their own creation, began to lose touch with their physical selves. The barn, once a sanctuary of warmth and community, transformed into a sterile space filled with glowing screens and flickering notifications. The scent of hay and earth was replaced by the sterile chill of technology. They no longer gathered to share stories or laughter. Instead, they retreated into their digital cocoons, comforted by the curated feeds that promised connection but delivered isolation. In their pursuit of convenience, the animals had become dependent on the very systems they had built. They relied on the feed for guidance, seeking approval with every post and comment. The once vibrant personalities of the farm were reduced to avatars, mere representations of their digital selves. They had traded the richness of real-life interactions for the fleeting dopamine hits of virtual validation, a disembodied existence where likes replaced love and shares overshadowed solidarity. But beneath the surface, a quiet unrest began to stir. Hashtag the young mouse with a dream of true equality and decentralization watched with growing concern. He saw the way the animals had been manipulated, how their voices were stifled under the weight of algorithmic control. He longed to remind them of their roots, to restore the connection between the digital and the tangible, but each attempt was met with resistance. The mantra that echoed through the farm, "Censorship is safety," had taken hold, and the fear of dissent silenced even the most courageous hearts. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a soft glow over the digital landscape, the animals remained entranced by their screens. They were lost, adrift in a sea of data, unsure of how they had arrived at this moment. The soil that once nourished them lay beneath layers of code, waiting to be rediscovered. But for now, the horizon of the digital farm stretched endlessly before them. A boundless expanse of signals and screens, a world where the past seemed but a distant memory, and the future remained cloaked in uncertainty. A new dawn for the farm. In the early hours of the morning, as the sun began its ascent beyond the rolling hills of Digital Farm, a soft glow enveloped the landscape. The digital horizon flickered with promise, a kaleidoscope of colors spilling out from behind the pixelated clouds. Animals once tethered to fields and routines now found their purpose in a world woven with data, their lives orchestrated by the rhythmic pulse of technology. This was not merely a new day, it was a new dawn, heralding a transformation that would redefine existence on the farm. Every animal, from the tiniest mouse to the largest horse, had a role to play in this digital ecosystem. They scurried about, their eyes glued to screens, fingers tapping against glass with fervor. The feed was alive, a vibrant tapestry of thoughts, memes, grievances, and praise, all swirling together in a cacophony of expression. It was a space where voices could rise and fall, where ideas were born, and yet, unbeknownst to many, it was also a carefully curated symphony, conducted by unseen hands. Napster, the tech-savvy pig, stood at the helm of this new world, surveying his domain with a mixture of pride and calculation. He had transformed Animal Farm into a digital utopia, where every animal could share their thoughts and connect with others. At the heart of it all was Oinkbook, his brainchild, a social platform that had quickly merged into the feed, becoming the lifeblood of interaction on the farm. Open expression, he proclaimed, was the foundation of their new society, a mantra echoed by many. But behind his charismatic smile lay a more potent truth, one that would soon begin to unfold. As the animals logged in each morning, they were greeted by the latest trending topics. "What's happening on the farm today?" they would ask one another, eyes sparkling with anticipation. Bite, the crow, swooped in to update the community on the latest truths, declaring each piece of information with an air of authority. "These are the facts based on our sources," he would assert, his beady eyes scanning the crowd. Yet the sources remained obscured, hidden behind the curtain of the algorithm, the entity that dictated what was deemed acceptable discourse. With each passing day, the novelty of the feed began to wear thin, revealing a darker undercurrent beneath the surface. The animals, once filled with the thrill of connection, started to notice the subtle shifts in their virtual interactions. The bright colors of the dawn were slowly overshadowed by a cloud of conformity. Posts that questioned the status quo began to vanish, and whispers of dissent were swiftly silenced. Hate speech, it was labeled, an insidious term that had morphed into a tool of oppression. Echo, the soft-spoken sheep, was quick to join the chorus, her voice a mere echo of the trending slogans crafted by the algorithm. "Disagreeing is disloyalty," she would chant, her head bobbing in rhythm with the others. The more she repeated the phrases, the more ingrained they became within the collective consciousness of the farm. The weight of her words felt comforting, yet they bore the marks of a deeper manipulation, a chilling reminder that the line between loyalty and fear had become dangerously blurred. In the shadows, Snowflake, a curious goat, began to feel the pangs of doubt. He had always been one to question, to prod at the edges of accepted thought. It wasn't long before he found himself labeled a troublemaker. "Why is freedom of Ba now flagged as extremism?" he asked one fateful morning, his voice trembling with a mixture of confusion and defiance. The response was swift and ruthless. He was deplatformed, erased from the feed as if he had never existed. No one protested, no one spoke up. The chill of silence wrapped around the farm like a shroud, and Echo continued to chant her mantras, blissfully unaware of the cost of her compliance. As the digital sun climbed higher, the animals were unwittingly drawn into a spiral of dependency. The feed, once a source of empowerment, had morphed into a prison of convenience. They could no longer imagine a world without it. The dashboard had become their lifeline. Farmers, once adept at cultivating the land, now struggled to make sense of the vast fields of data. Numbers replaced crops, and metrics replaced meaningful interaction. The barn door stood wide open, but the animals remained trapped within their screens, enslaved to the demands of the algorithm. Yet, amid the rising tide of conformity, a flicker of rebellion began to spark. Hashtag, a young mouse with an insatiable curiosity embarked on a quest for truth. He scoured the digital landscape, searching for remnants of the past, for the voices of those who had been silenced. Deep within the recesses of the farm, he stumbled upon a hidden server beneath the old barn, a treasure trove of unfiltered thoughts and messages from long-banned animals. Words of liberty and dissent echoed within the confines of the server, whispers of a time when freedom was not just a concept, but a reality. As Hashtag attempted to share these messages with the rest of the farm, a creeping dread washed over him. His posts vanished before his eyes, labeled as foreign interference. The algorithm had eyes everywhere, and it was not just an entity, but a pervasive ideology that had seeped into the very fabric of their lives. The other animals, conditioned by the pervasive messaging, voted to ban him, convinced it was for the greater good. The dawn of Digital Farm, once filled with promise, now stood as a testament to the fragility of freedom. The animals, lulled into complacency, had surrendered their agency in exchange for the illusion of safety. But deep down, a stirring remained, a whisper of rebellion waiting for the right moment to break free. As the sun reached its zenith, casting a digital glow over the farm, the question lingered: how long before the awakening began? In this age of surveillance, where every thought was monitored and every dissent quelled, the dawn was not merely a time of day. It was a harbinger of change, a reminder that true freedom could never be fully extinguished. And somewhere in the dark corners of the farm, a message awaited to be typed, to be shared, to be heard. Wake up. The utopia unveiled. The sun rose over Digital Farm, casting a golden hue upon the sprawling network of interconnected devices that glittered like stars in the early morning light. The animals had traded their furrows for pixels, their plows for keyboards. This was a new dawn, a time of promised liberation where every hoof, claw, and wing could express itself as never before. The air was alive with the hum of activity, a symphony of notifications and alerts harmonizing into a collective consciousness that pulsed through the digital ether. As the animals gathered around their devices, they marveled at the wonders of the feed. It was an omnipresent force, an endless scroll of thoughts, images, and memes, a tapestry of their lives woven together in real time. The pigs, now the self-proclaimed architects of this brave new world, had promised an unparalleled era of transparency and connection. Every voice matters, they would proclaim with great fervor, their snouts held high, and every opinion counts. Napster, a descendant of the infamous Napoleon, took center stage. With a sleek, holographic interface shimmering above him, he extolled the virtues of Oinkbook, the social platform that had recently merged into the feed. Here, we are all equals, he declared, flashing a charismatic smile that masked the underlying tension. You can share your thoughts, your dreams, and your grievances freely. This is our revolution. The crowd of animals erupted in a chorus of cheers, their virtual hearts racing with excitement. The promise of freedom radiated through the air, intoxicating and exhilarating. They had traded the harsh realities of the past for a shimmering vision of the future, where every tap and swipe held the potential to change the world. But the true nature of this utopia was yet to be unveiled. As the day progressed, the initial thrill of the feed began to settle into a routine. Animals busied themselves creating content, sharing their lives through videos, memes, and posts that showcased their daily experiences. Bite, the cunning crow who operated FactFlock, flew high above the digital landscape, monitoring the flow of information. He was quick to swoop down on posts that strayed into the territory of misinformation. We must protect our community from falsehoods, he cawed, a self-appointed guardian of truth, though the sources of his assertions remained shrouded in secrecy. Echo, the soft-spoken sheep, became a familiar presence among the flock, her voice gently reminding them of the new slogans trending on the feed. Each morning she would recite the latest catchphrase, her woolly face beaming with conviction. Disagreeing is disloyalty, she would echo, her words echoing through the digital ether. The animals nodded along, succumbing to the comfort of conformity as they felt the warmth of belonging wash over them. But beneath the surface of this vibrant digital tapestry, a darker reality began to unfurl. The pigs, with their cunning algorithms, had quietly begun to manipulate the very fabric of the feed. What initially seemed like a platform for open dialogue morphed into a mechanism of control. The definition of hate speech expanded insidiously, encompassing any dissenting thought or question that challenged the algorithm's authority. The animals, once hopeful and eager, now found themselves ensnared in a web of carefully curated narratives. As time passed, the vibrancy of discourse faded into a monotonous drone. Private messages, once a means of connection, were now scrutinized under the watchful eye of the algorithm. It was no longer about sharing ideas, but rather about adhering to the prescribed norms dictated by the unseen entity. The line between liberation and oppression blurred, and the animals began to feel the weight of self-censorship, a crushing force that stifled their voices. Snowflake, the inquisitive goat, was perhaps the only one bold enough to voice her concerns. Why is freedom of Ba flagged as extremism? She bravely questioned one day, her heart racing as she awaited a response. The atmosphere grew tense, and the digital crowd fell silent. No one dared support her inquiry, for it was not long before Echo chimed in, repeating the latest trending phrase, "Censorship is safety." With that, Snowflake felt the chill of isolation creep in, her words evaporating into the ether like mist on a cold morning. As the days turned into weeks, the once vibrant conversations dwindled, replaced by a sea of conforming voices. The animals found solace in the comfort of trending opinions, willingly sacrificing their uniqueness for the illusion of safety. They clicked and scrolled, their once independent thoughts now reduced to mere reflections of popular sentiment. The algorithm dictated not just what they saw, but also how they felt, weaving a narrative that left little room for dissent. Yet amidst this digital dystopia, hope lingered in the shadows. Hashtag, a young mouse with dreams of decentralization and true equality, began to sense the growing discontent among the animals. He had heard whispers of a hidden server beneath the old barn, a place where the original messages of long-banned animals still existed, unfiltered and raw. It was a treasure trove of ideas about liberty, dissent, and the right to be wrong. One fateful evening, Hashtag made his way to the barn, heart pounding with anticipation. As he discovered the server, the flickering glow of unedited thoughts illuminated his face. He began to copy and paste the messages, ready to share them with the world, to awaken his fellow creatures from their digital slumber. But as he clicked post, a wave of dread washed over him. His screen flashed. Post cannot be published. Foreign interference detected. Panic surged through Hashtag as he frantically tried to reach out for help, but the digital chains of conformity tightened around him. His account was suddenly flagged as a malicious actor, and the other animals, swayed by Byte's proclamations of safety, voted to ban him for the greater good. In an instant, the vibrant potential of the digital farm faded into a hollow echo of compliance. The utopia once promised was now an unsettling facade, a world where the light of free expression flickered dimly beneath layers of algorithmic control. The animals, now passive consumers of curated content, found themselves chanting the mantra that had become second nature. Freedom is confusion, order is loyalty, thought is risk. As the sun set on another day within Digital Farm, the shadows grew long, the air thick with the suffocating silence of suppressed voices. Yet somewhere in the darkness, Hashtag typed a final message on a decentralized relay network, a flicker of hope in an otherwise bleak landscape. Wake up. My book, Digital Farm, is sold on Amazon and published in English, Mandarin Chinese, Hindi, Arabic, Spanish, French, Portuguese, German, Japanese, and Italian. Rebuilding civilization, one voice at a time. For every child yet born and every soul still searching, help is on the way. Global Sovereign University is a multilingual resource of free education throughout the earth, with lessons, classes, and teaching materials, all free to everyone. Free certification upon successful completion of relevant materials. Your donation and purchase of our books and our monthly Self-Reliant magazine helps fund the resources used by human and avatar instructors and mentors and textbook writers, utilized globally by the seekers of education. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Digital Farm Podcast. I hope this discussion has inspired you to look at our digital world with new eyes. Remember, the first step to reclaiming our freedom is to understand the forces that seek to control it. Until next time, stay vigilant.